Lovely. Yay. So, thank you very much. So, welcome to the second meeting of the School of Archaeology and Maritime Cultures seminar series. And today we have unusual pleasure of welcoming Thomas Even Levy, who is, and there's going to be a long introduction for all the titles and numerous achievements, a distinguished professor, holds the Norma Kershaw Chair in the Archaeology of Ancient Israel and Neighboring Lands at the University of California, San Diego. He's also a member of the Department of Anthropology and co-director of the Scripps Center of Marine Archaeology, and you'll hear more about this today, the SCMA, at UC San Diego. He was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He is, for many years, maybe more than 40, is a Levantine field archaeologist with interest in the role of technology, especially early mining and metallurgy, on the evolution of societies, especially in the Mediterranean coastal zones. Tom has published no less than 16 books, several hundreds scholarly articles in high-impact journals, conference proceedings, and more. And in 2018, Levy was awarded the Doctor of Philosophical Science honoris causa at Charles University, the Czech Republic. And he's been published recently by Springer Academic Press on heritage and archaeology and numerous other publications. He is the PI for the 2-year University of California Office of the President Catalyst Grant, no less than 1.7 millions at risk World Heritage at the Digital Humanities to help jumpstart SCMA. And Levy is leading a trans-Mediterranean land and sea study of climate, environmental, and deep change in Greece and in Israel. The first together with George Papa Theodorou, that some other of us know him very well, and the latter is happily with me. I'm so grateful for this. Also, most recently, the Koret Foundation, San Francisco, awarded with Thomas PI and the University of California, University of Haifa, as host institutions, 1.3 million for a 3-year global scientific collaboration concerning deep time climate and environmental change. And we just returned from one of these expeditions. In today's talk, to build and to be built, reflections on institution building for the new School of Archaeology, University of Haifa, Professor Levy argues that the creation of the new School of Archaeology at the University of Haifa provides a unique opportunity to help make the university both a national and world leader in archaeology and cultural heritage. This talk provides a personal, or his personal, American perspective on the creation of 2 relatively new institutions at the University of California, San Diego that relate directly to the goals of the new Haifa School. These include the Center for Cyber Archaeology and Sustainability and the Scripps Center for Marine Archaeology. Professor Levy, bevakasha.
Thank you so much, Asaf, for that great introduction. And thanks to Asaf and Yisrael Finkelstein, who I think is here, there he is in the back, for welcoming me here to the University of Haifa and for giving me the opportunity to play a role as one of the advisors of the Rekanati School and helping to think about the direction that the school's going to take in the future. And Asaf kind of reviewed our abstract for the talk, so I'm not going to repeat it, but what I want to say is that this is a very personal view from the outside. You know, there's an expression in Hebrew, ein navi be'iro, right? There's no prophet in his own land. When I lived in Israel, it was very applicable. Now I live in the United States, it's also applicable. So I hope somebody will listen, but I think I really do honestly believe in terms of global archaeology, Haifa is uniquely set to really lead the way. And those are not just words. So because we have really young people here and we have older colleagues, I know some people here for over 40 years, I want to just tell you a little bit about me and how it shapes my view for the future of this institution, that I'm going to go out with flame, doing my best to help. So I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson, and my teachers, a lot of these people you will know from reading, like Michael Schiffer, behavioral archaeology, Arthur Jelinek dug at Taboon Cave. Okay, he didn't publish enough, right? That's everybody knows. Norman Yaffe and William Deaver, our friend Yisrael. And so they had a very formative effect on me. And I hope for the young people here, your teachers, you'll remember your teachers also. Originally, I wanted to be a focus on Greek archaeology and Greek prehistory. It didn't work. I was at the University of Sheffield, so I had to change gears, and I came here, even though I first came to Israel in 1971, but it was Graham Barker who actually shared the Dan David Prize with Yisrael Finkelstein, he was a young professor in Sheffield, and he said, why don't you go back to Israel? So I did, and that was all good. And I started to work in the Negev desert. And this is a spoiler alert, because one of my projects during COVID was to write my autobiography. So I did it with my niece, who's an illustrator. And so it's a comic book. What could be better to tell the story of an archaeologist, right? And so that's David Alon on the right and me digging our first probe at Shikmim. And so for my PhD, I did a survey of the Nahal Beersheva and Nahal Psor, about 120 kilometers over a 3-year period. I never had a license. It kills Asaf, because this guy really pays attention to following all the rules. I never followed the rules until I met Asaf. Okay, and I did it on a bicycle that you see here. And then that was David Alon from Kibbutz Mishmar Negev, who was my colleague in all of this. And we dug for years at Shikmim. We still have one more, several volumes. They're just about to come out. You've heard that before. And here you can see some visitors from the IDF who helped us a lot. And, our early work at Shikmim was important because it kind of laid a kind of foundation for science-based archaeology that I think Yisrael would agree with for Israel. And this was back in the 1987. My first real job when I got to Israel was as the ethnographic curator of the Negev Museum in Beersheba. I hardly made any money at that job, I'll tell you, working for Iriat Beersheba. But it took about 4 years, and I was honored to build the first Bedouin museum of Bedouin culture in the city of Beersheba. It was on the outskirts at a place called Tel Sheva, a Bedouin community there. And that's the exhibit that you see there. And then, I always say this, I'm going to say it again, but I did not have vitamin P. You know what that is? What's vitamin P in Hebrew? Who said it? Raise your hand. Protexia. I didn't have it. So I wasn't going to get a job with Kviut here. So I went back to California, my roots. And it worked out well, I have to say. And so I brought all my Israeli friends to California, and we produced this book, The Archaeology of Society in the Holy Land. And Asaf took up the mantle, and recently with York Rowan and Eric Klein produced the social archaeology of the Levant, the whole Levant. I was just focused on our area. And I also had the opportunity after the peace treaty with Israel and Jordan, I was invited to work in Jordan, and I teamed up with Dr. Mohammed Najjar from 1997 until today. And I mean, I don't dig in Jordan anymore, but we still publish. So you can see Mohammed on the left. One of the former directors of antiquity there used to call him Mohammed Levy, and I was Tom Najjar. That was the way it went there. In 2005, UC San Diego opened the new Qualcomm Institute. It's a center of excellence for digital technology and telecommunications, okay? And my wife was observing, Alina, that this thing was happening, and she said, you gotta go to this open house in 2005. So I did, and I went into one of these 3D environments, and I saw that they were modeling earthquakes in Southern California using, data that included X, Y, and Z coordinates. And I realized, well, that's exactly what we've been doing in Jordan, collecting X, Y, and Z for every single artifact. And after that opening, I was invited to talk with the director. He basically, Ramesh Rao, he said, what's your dream? I told him my dream. And that was the beginning of establishing the Center for Cyber Archaeology and Sustainability. Cyber archaeology means, it refers to the marriage of archaeology with computer science, engineering, and the natural sciences. And it's all based on a model that I'm going to show you in a moment. But the vision statement, the mission statement of the Qualcomm Institute is inventing a persistent, collaborative research and education environment as a model for the major research university in the 21st century. Something we should consider here also as we build the new school. And the Harvard University uses the Qualcomm Institute as a case study in how the research university should evolve in the future. This is basically how, starting in 1999, that's when I decided I would go totally paperless on our excavations in Jordan. Why? Because honestly, with a name like Levy, you don't know how long you're going to last there, right? As a active field worker, and I always wanted to come home with all the data. Okay, that was the bottom line in this work. So this is a model of our of deployment of a wide range of digital technologies like robotic total station, drones, helium balloons. The truth is we used mostly helium balloons because the Jordanians at the time didn't want to let us use drones so much, LiDAR, 3D visualization, et cetera, et cetera. And that we published that, the first sort of cyber archaeology paper back in 2001 in the SAA Archaeological Record. This is the model which I presented to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences for cyber archaeology, which basically includes data acquisition, data curation, data analyses and data, of course, this is all digital data, and the dissemination of data over cyber infrastructures like the internet using digital archaeological atlases. That's what we do. And then involving, citizen science, something to consider, having people help analyze big data sets, and then displaying the results in personal virtual reality devices and large scale VR platforms. So we'll have a quick look at some of that. Back in 2010, Popular Science, the magazine, they voted us as one of the 30 awesome college labs. We thought that was cool. We were happy with that. And there you can see actually Jürgen Schultz on the left and Kyle Knabb, who did a postdoc here. Was my student. He did it at Beersheba. And they're looking at Khirbet and Nahas and the proof of a robust 10th century BCE complex society there. Hi, Israel. We argue a lot, but we're dear friends. And another thing to consider is getting undergraduate groups involved in activities. So for example, at UCSD, we have the undergraduate virtual reality club. They have about 250 kids and they're all amazing. They can write code and you got to drag them in and get them involved with the work, and they can practically write these papers for you. And so this what they do is the club uses Oculus Rift, Google Cardboards, HTC Vives, all kinds of headsets to do the virtual reality stuff. And everything that we're collecting here in Israel will be viewed in these kinds of platforms. Another part of our work of the Center for Cyber Archaeology was putting on a major international conference on the Exodus. I mean, the Jewish Exodus from Egypt, which I have to put it that way in America because they don't know, like, who was this guy, Moses, and what was that story about, And so we have to remind them. But if you can imagine on an American university campus trying to do something about Jewish history or Israel, and for that matter, it's a challenge, right? But I found that through cyber archaeology and putting on a digital exhibition and using some of the new technologies at the time that you see in the digital exhibition there, we could bring everybody from different perspectives together to view Israel's story, essentially the Exodus. So we employed these audio tools called the sound bender, and you can basically, like in the front row here, point the sound in 3 different areas and have the narrative in Hebrew, Arabic, and English. And so that way everybody's in the same room, standing together, listening to the story in their language and getting a lot out of it and being very supportive. We didn't get any protests when we did this exhibit. And then we had as Asaf mentioned, the University of California Office of the President. We competed and were awarded what's called the Catalyst Grant. And that was all about bringing 4 different universities in the UC system together to work on this a problem of at-risk world heritage. So we had UC Berkeley, we had UC Merced, which is like a minority serving university, and we had UCLA, and then the mothership was UC San Diego. And so through the cyber archaeology, as Asaf mentioned, we've done a lot of publications in cultural heritage and so on. And so the book for the conference on the Exodus came out, Israel's Exodus in Transdisciplinary Perspective. Transdisciplinary means like group science, where we give every research domain, the PI, an equal footing in creating the vision of how the research should be done. So there's no more, like delegating like people to the back of a book or something. It's a group effort, and we have the next book to come out early next year will be Preserving Cultural Heritage in the Digital Age, sending out an SOS. And this was going to reflect our the work we did with the 4 universities for the Catalyst project. And I did a project in the Judean desert, and you can, as part of this work at Mar Saba, which you can see there. I forget if we got permission to do that. I just don't remember. So as far as our work goes, with the University of Haifa, it's grown. We started in 2017. It's grown exponentially with the Koret Foundation, which really it's a foundation from San Francisco. They're especially interested in helping the California community, but they also are very interested in institution building between the US and Israel. And so our project with the University of Haifa really resonated with them. And I think, you know, the 4 departments that are coming together, like if we all work together, it's going to be awesome in pushing the place of Israeli archaeology forward. I wanted to remind everybody that probably one of the most important issues now for American researchers in the humanities, the social sciences, and also the hard sciences, it's this idea of social justice. And this is just the web page from the AIA. And I'm bringing this up to remind you that if you're writing a research proposal that's going to be reviewed by an American research scientist, you better have something about social justice in it. It is an important issue, but sometimes we forget that because we're so focused on the actual research. But we do need to pull this together, and I have this. I do have a suggestion for that at the end for Haifa. Okay, so the big question for us was, we at UCSD, we had no experience, no record of long-term research in underwater archaeology. So how do we jumpstart SCMA to become an international player in archaeology today? You just dive in, right? That was what we did. But let's remember something about archaeology. And in my opinion, archaeology is one of those few disciplines that intersects with all the major divisions of a research university, like whether we're talking about biological science, marine science, material science, computer science and engineering, the humanities like Judaic studies, Greek studies, the visual arts, anthropology, and the social sciences, geosciences. Everybody loves archaeology, and it's about like reaching out to our friends in those other fields and dragging them into our research efforts to enhance archaeology as an important tool, as an important player. So this idea fit in with our university because one of the goals over the last 5 years for UCSD has been an area of research called Understanding and Protecting the Planet. And so under that guise, we were able to hire new faculty and so on. And we actually got 2 new archaeologists, Isabel Rivera Cayazo and Jay Dalpine Geddes, because of this initiative, which cross-cuts different fields. And these are just the people involved. And it all focuses on research, field work. Our field school is here with Asaf and the University of Haifa. We do some research and development, especially in the area of photogrammetry. And the main emphasis with the teaching is on graduate teaching and having the graduate students, like you do here, involved with the actual directing of the field work and collecting data. I see everybody's agreeing with me in the back there. Okay, our goal for SCMA is to kind of do this deep time study of environmental and culture change across from the Eastern Mediterranean, certainly to India and maybe to China. And we have connections with people and institutions all along the way. And I would personally like to see the faculty of the University of Haifa involved in all these efforts. Because when my Greek colleagues ask me, do you have an expert in archaeobotany, archaeozoology, archaeometallurgy, et cetera, petrography? I say, yeah, they're all over in Israel. And they say, great, bring them, So I think we're at a stage politically where we can actually do that realistically. So this is a kind of metaphor of the marine Silk Road that would connect all these things together. We have a science diving course connected to the AAUS. What I've learned is, and if you pass this course, it's 100 hours, it's like 14 pretty hard dives and all of that. You get 6 different qualifications. It's all great, but it's there are many ways to do it, and we're trying to merge this with our diving collaborators here at the University of Haifa. Oops, let's forget that. It's too loud. I'm going to turn the sound down. The Archaeological Field School, we hope COVID allowing, will do it next summer. Again, we did this in 2018, I believe. And we have in San Diego, we have a lot of strong supporters of Israel, and we're trying to push those supporters to help the University of Haifa with the Murray Gallinson San Diego Israel initiative. And so they are always willing to provide funds that cover most of the expenses of students, undergraduates, and some graduate students to come here. So SCMA is kind of focused on 3 different branches of underwater exploration: shallow marine geophysics, sediment coring, and underwater excavation and photogrammetry. Well, we have at UCSD and Scripps Institution of Oceanography, we have a really good record of how to analyze sediment cores for reconstructing paleoenvironmental issues and so on. Shallow marine geophysics, not so much. Underwater archaeology, almost nothing. So we decided in 2017 to partner with ASAF and your university for the underwater archaeology, because you are pioneers in it. And for shallow marine geophysics, the University of Patras and Professor George Papadiathorou, their team are awesome. They do work all over the Eastern Mediterranean, and they are great partners. And we basically took the terrestrial model for cyber archaeology and adopted it for underwater archaeology, and that's what this is. But remember that the technology stuff is very important and it's very cool, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's the historical questions, the anthropological questions that are driving the research. And at the end of the day, if you have to use a ruler and a tape measure, right, just that's good enough, right? You don't have to use all this stuff. You have to have the research questions hardened to really understand. So something we're very interested in is the collapse of civilizations. And sometimes I wonder if I'm seeing it in real time back home in the United States, like what causes the collapse of civilizations? Is it climate change, social crises due to mass migrations and pandemics, We have 2 million new undocumented immigrants into the United States who just crossed the border. We have a pandemic, dramatic advances in methods of transport, warfare, the inability of humans to adapt to crises, the lack of social resilience, poor elite leadership. Wow, we're really good at that, just saying. All right. So we've been trying to explore these ideas with our work with Asaf's team here on the Carmel Coast. And sometimes, we don't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. Like we're getting all this Roman stuff. Gil, I mean, he's very excited, but it's all good, so we have to change our research design periodically. But really, one of the things that attracted me here to work with Asaf and Ayelet and others on the underwater at Tel Dor was the historical connections to ancient Israel. And that connects directly to the work we did in Jordan with this big project in the Feinan district, where we looked at social change through the lens of technological change in ancient mining and metallurgy. And over on the right there, you can see our camp, which doesn't it look like an Israeli army camp? Like how many people ever put up a Ohel Chadesrei? Raise your hand if you ever put up one of those tents. Go on, look, only Ifat, like the major Ifat. Okay, I see. Okay, they're coming out of the woodwork here. Okay, I just took all my tents that I bought here in Israel to Jordan. I have like 20 of them, and I set them up there in like a chet, right? And a lot of them say, it's written in Hebrew, Hamifaked. That was for me. And, it was kind of cool. People got used to it. At first, they were a little concerned. But anyway, our big excavation was at Chibet and Nahas, where we opened up 6 major areas, including Area M that you see down, well, you can see it down here. Which was a slag mound. And Andreas Hauptmann estimated that the peak of copper production in Feinan was in the Iron Age, no less, much larger than the Roman period or the early Islamic period, based on the amount of slag, 6,500 to 13,000 tons of copper. Where did it go? Well, we think it went to the temple in Jerusalem. We're not going to go into it here, but what we were able to show with the stratigraphic excavation in the slag mound was that there were only 2 major periods of copper production. They were both on an industrial scale. And you see where it says break, 3 meters below that arrow, everything is from the 10th century BCE, industrial scale copper production, and then another 3 meters above it with a break in the middle. So this is just to show that a local complex society was cranking out copper and sending it, across the Negev desert, probably to the Mediterranean coast. We did a lot of effort, and Erez Ben Yosef at the time was my graduate student. He worked a lot with us on these problems, and we've produced a wide range of these chaîne apotoirs, the operational chains for the production of copper in Feinan, from the market forces that drove production to its ultimate export. And that's where we get into the sea with the Neve Yam Iron Age wreck, and Nama Ya'alom Mak and her colleagues were able to show that that a lot of these ingots actually came from Feinan in Jordan, and I'm guessing they were probably produced at Khirbet and Nahas. So we need to find more of these, right, Asaf? Right. Okay. So I'm going to just, rather than talk more, I'm going to show you a short video that summarizes one of our joint projects with the University of Haifa, a Neolithic mega tsunami event in the Eastern Mediterranean. And this was recently published in PLOS One. So let's see if this works.
Warren Buffett
Yeah, and we got to get him off. We got to wait 1 second. There. Wow, you jumped up here.
Yeah.
No, it's working.
No, but only you, they don't see it.
Oh, they don't see it. Okay. This is why Ifat is here. Good. Thank you. When the Scripps Center of Marine Archaeology wanted to kickstart actually excavating underwater, we started our collaboration with the University of Haifa and the Rekanati Center of Maritime Studies under Professor Asaf Yasur Landau. And Asaf suggested that we begin our work together at Tel Dor, in the waters of Tel Dor, which was one of the most important ancient ports in antiquity. So that was that's our long-term research focus. And it's there that we decided we wanted to really expand our understanding of the paleoenvironment. So that's when we decided to bring Gilad Steinberg into the story. And Gilad, it's been so great working with you. And when we started to get the cores in this area, we worked very close to the shoreline of the South Bay of the ancient port of Dor. There are a number of small bays there. And the South Bay, we can see to my left, it's in big letters, South Bay. Could you say something about the strategy we use to core in this area?
Yeah, so in the South Bay of Dor, we used the GeoProbe, which is basically the coring rig that we mostly use in the coastal plain of Israel, that I used through my PhD research. And this coring methodology lets us retrieve continuous core records of the stratigraphy of the area. And this is such a good methodology to use, just because using this coring methodology, we can understand the environment and the changes that influence, leading to its current morphology.
So we got a number of cores indicated there, D4, D12, D6. One of those had a big surprise for us. Which one did this start to reveal? Which core started to reveal the surprise?
Well, we conducted this coring over two coring expedition. In 2018, we retrieved core D4. And in D4, after extracting this core out from the surface, I was very surprised to see this very thin sand unit.
Well, let's look at it. Hang on. Can we have the next slide, please? Let's look at it. Okay. So I remember that day. I came into the lab at Scripps, overlooking the beautiful Pacific Ocean. It can't be a better place to work. And there was Gilad, and then in walked Professor Norris in his white lab coat, and you guys were all excited. Can you point out what that layer was that you? Go ahead, show me which one it was again.
So it's the lithological unit called F3. You can actually see it between two black layers.
Got it. F3. Okay. Dick, what got you guys so excited about F3?
Yeah, what we were doing was we were cutting open these cores, these tubes of sediment with a saw, and each one started to show the same kind of thing, this layer of sand in between darker colored sediments that we thought represented wetlands. And then the really cool thing about that was that the sand layer contained shells, marine shells.
Now, wait a minute. You're not talking, we're on land. You're not talking about like land snails. You're talking about like mollusks, right?
Yeah, marine shells and little pieces of clay and stuff like that that just didn't look like a normal deposit. And what was so interesting about it was that core after core, when we split them open, we all saw very similar kinds of layers like this, which was not what we expected.
Based on these data, there's no question that we identified an ancient tsunami event in the core record from Dor.
So the key variables are what the water depth is, how big a submarine slide has been generated when the earthquake strikes, how much of the continental slope failed, basically. That creates a displacement, which is what you see in that big wave. And then there's the issue of also how far from the coast, the submarine slide happens, because that determines how rapidly the wave will reach the land surface. And you can see in the model that the wave is overwashing the coastline and is presumably decimating any coastal communities that might have been there. I think another cool thing you can see in the simulation is the orange area. So that was the area that got inundated by the tsunami wave. And it's not really uniform along the coastline. So the area immediately opposite the slope failure really gets hit. And then a little bit farther north as well, up closer to the town of Haifa.
So we nailed the age of this tsunami deposit to 7,900 to 7,300 BC. And we did this using a relatively new innovative technique called optically stimulated luminescence dating. OSL dating dates the last time that sand grains were exposed to light. So we were able to subsample the cores in the dark and then bring them to my lab at Utah State University to determine how old they were.
Yeah, so we're thinking that these marine shells were transported over a distance of 16 kilometers.
16 kilometers. That's like, 4 or 5 miles, right? So Israel was bigger in those days.
Yeah, during these times, the sea level was much lower, so the coastal plain was much, much wider.
We are now at the Nahal Oren Neolithic settlement. This is a pre-pottery Neolithic A and the B settlement, very large one, probably the largest in the area of the Carmel. When the tsunami was hitting the coast, it could have had a very, very strong effect on this early Mediterranean economy, impacting the fields, impacting the livestock, causing perhaps an irreparable damage that took much time to recover from. This is an event during a time in which society was beginning to form as sedentary society, and village life was in its very beginning. We can only imagine what consequences this event or this mega event had on the belief system of the people that resided here.
Okay, there was a little bit of surfing music in the background there. That was planned, actually. Let's see if I can advance this. Yep. Okay, I have about 10 minutes left, so I want to just briefly tell you a little bit about the Methoni Bay Marine Archaeology and Cultural Heritage Project. It takes place in the Peloponnesos. You can see it's part of Messene on the left-hand side of the map down there, the most western peninsula of the Peloponnesos. And one of the questions we're interested in is the 4.2K event, the mega drought, supposed mega drought, and how Middle Bronze Age or Middle Helladic societies might have adapted to that. Again, we're employing the same approach that I mentioned earlier, the three-prong approach for SCMA. the big question, underwater excavation. It's really hard to get a license to dig in Greece, but you know, shwaya, slowly, we're gonna get there. This is our research vessel. It's a yacht that we rent each season, and then my colleagues at the University of Patras deck it out with all the computer systems needed for the shallow marine geophysics. And then there's also a diving platform there which we can use. And this is just an illustration showing how all the data collection tools come together in a geospatial database so that we can create like a digital scaffold where we can put all the data that's collected, archaeological and environmental and geology together. This is a drone shot of the area of Methone today, taken by Tony Tamburino, my grad student who's here. All those dark spots you see beneath the surface there are part of the middle Halatic submerged site. It's in about 4 meters of water. It was first discovered by Ilias Spondilis, who was with the Greek underwater effort, and he's a colleague now, and we're working together on this project. It's awesome. And these just show you the track lines, but I'd like you to just pay attention to this little island here called Nisiakuli. This is about 500 meters from here to here, okay? And let's see what this is the research team. You know, life's good on this is why I left 40 years of working in the deserts of the Holy Land. You know, it's much better, this marine environment, I tell you. Professor Maria Garaga, a geophysicist, she's analyzing the sub-bottom profile data in real time here. These are some of the graduate students, Xenophon and Nikos, with a tide gauge to help calibrate all the marine geophysical instruments that they deploy. Here you can see Tony, Lauren, and Rich Walsh. A lot of you know these people. They've been with us in the field. Tony and Lauren are here now, working especially on the photogrammetry. And this just gives you the totals for the track lines that we did with the boat in kilometers, you know, like 16 kilometers of multi-beam, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have to go into it here. This is our 25 by 25 meter grid that we superimposed over the site. And the ones with the large dots here, these are the squares that we actually did underwater photogrammetry on. And this gives you an idea of the resolution of the geophysics that George's team does in the research area. And here you can just see like depth of sediments is calculated here, and the same over here. These are the darker ones are actually the more shallow sediment exposures that we saw in the drone imagery. And then we wanted to ground truth some of the observations made by the geophysical team, so they would actually tell us where to go. And so we would, based on intensities that they observed in the geophysics, and we have our scooters, and we brought them here on this trip. Moshiko said we're not allowed to take them home. He's taking them from us. And here you can see Rich. Having a professional diver with you is great because they do the navigating, and then we can do the archaeology, because that's what science diving is really about, enabling the archaeologists to feel comfortable working underwater. So that was one target. And then once we identify the targets, we can zoom down with our little electric scooters, a Piranha. And then here you can see a really cool circular feature. It's about 6 meters in diameter that was first discovered by Ilias Spondylis, but there are hundreds of walls down there that we are able to map with photogrammetry. That's fun. And then you can pick up middle halatic pottery off the seafloor. And then this is the camera rig, more or less. We have an updated version, but it's 3 high-definition cameras with an intervalometer that makes all 3 cameras fire at the same time. And so we use this to do our photogrammetric work, and Tony is the master of that. Here's a map that we made right out of the field of that circular structure. And then when we spend more time analyzing the data, we're starting to get the site plan of this middle halatic site, which corresponds to the middle Bronze Age here. And interesting, when we do the side scan sonar, of course, we can pick up those archaeological features on the sea bottom, but it's the sub-bottom profile data that shows us that this same kind of feature extends under the sand. And the sand is only about 1 meter thick, something like that. And so here, this is the area, I'm colorblind, so please excuse me. This is red, I think, and this is yellow. I don't know. Okay, so this is this area is what you see on the surface with those beautiful walls that I showed you. And this is all subsurface material that we think is also connected with the site, but it's covered with a sand layer. So the site is about, when you add up the whole area, it's probably about 14 hectares in size. That is, it's getting on to being like a town of some kind. And so before we came here, my wife's killing me because I was away all of October, now I'm away all of November. But after Corona, right, we want to get back in the field. So we were in Greece for a month, and we got permission to actually do sediment coring. And so here you see us with the system that Dick Norris developed. And we can only get about 1.5 meters of sediment using human power, right? That's it. And so Amir, the diving officer here, showed me a new system that the Israelis have developed, which is, I think it's a hydraulic system, and it's awesome. You can get it's very expensive, but you can get a 6-meter core that it's just impossible for a human being to do that. So my dream is next year to actually organize a University of Haifa expedition with a boat, and we're going to sail from Haifa Bay to Methoni with this team with the new sediment coring system, and we're going to get those cores, and we're going to work together to understand the paleoenvironment. And these are all the cores. You can see how short they are, to be frank, that we collected this season, and they're being shipped to us in San Diego right now. Another part of our work is, community outreach. And so I think you guys are on the right track, having a new department with Shirley and others devoted to museology and cultural heritage. It's what we need to do these days. So we worked with the Museum of Messenia in Kalamata, and they allowed us to scan all of their artifacts on display related to Methoni through all the periods. And so here you can see Jack. He's one of my grad students who's here. And we're actually using a structured light scanner that you guys, we bought the same one that you guys bought. And that's really thanks to Mayor Edri, who suggested it to us. It's very portable. And so we scanned all this material. Super difficult to even get into a storeroom in Greece. It's not like the Israel Antiquities Authority that have this awesome system for getting scholars access to material. It's like pulling teeth. And so here you can, we were able to scan one pot, and everybody was amazed that we got permission like in 3 days to do this, but we did. And that pot that you just saw was a Middle Helladic cult vessel excavated on that little island of Nisyakuli that I showed you, which has a Middle Bronze Age, Middle Helladic ritual site, right? So it's possible that our submerged Methoni Middle Helladic site went all the way there to Nisyakuli. That's a half a kilometer. It's awesome. So anyway, and then I mentioned the personal VR. This is the large scale VR. This is way too expensive for anybody to buy. And they don't even make these passive 3D TVs anymore, to be honest. But in any case, it's really, for those of us that don't live in the Eastern Mediterranean, we can bring our stuff back to San Diego and experience it almost like you're there. And it's cooler inside the lab. So here's some action points for us at UCSD. Well, we have the last year of our CORET project. It starts in January of 2022. So we'll continue with our underwater archaeology expeditions. I have this idea that because of the emphasis on social justice in the world scene, that the University of Haifa needs to step up and really get involved with that issue. And they can do it by helping to create a museum of Bedouin cultural heritage in the Tel Sheva area of southern Israel. And it kind of ties in with my personal interests of having made a Bedouin museum 40 years ago. But this can be, I don't have to tell you, there are problems in the Bedouin community today in Israel, and this will get us all involved in a positive way. And so I think it could be a kind of laboratory for a lot of issues in museology, everything from digital technologies to scientific storytelling. Morocco, we did a little project already at the oldest Jewish settlement, probably in North Africa, probably established after the destruction of the first temple. It's a place called Ifrane in the Anti-Atlas Mountains, and it looks like an abandoned pueblo, like in the American Southwest. It's an awesome mud brick town, totally abandoned in the 1950s when the Moroccan Jews had to leave and come here and other places. My colleague there, Dr. Yusuf Bokbat, is dying to work with Israelis on this. So this is like low-hanging fruit to get money to involve the University of Haifa in this. Again, the Greek project next October. Be great to get that boat from Haifa to Methoni. And then by 2013, Ilya Spandili says we're going to dig. So we want to bring all the expertise of the School of Archaeology to help with the analysis of that material. So I think, on my title, I said Livnot Lehibanot, and Toda Rabah. I have my team here. And that is to build or be built. And does anybody recognize that saying? Okay, it's probably too old, but it's a powerful Zionist slogan, to build and be built. And it was it came up after the Kishinev pogroms in 1903, and it helped, stimulate the growth of Zionism in this area, and that's important. But it's, for me personally, it's just my nature to want to help build things for archaeology, global archaeology. But I think in the twilight years, this is something real with a lot of potential. That is the School of Archaeology at the University of Haifa. And let's all work together and make it happen. Thank you very much. Oh, there's a building in Tel Sheva. Here it is, ready to go for this museum idea. Yep. Sure. Please, yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see how big the boat is, but for sure. But let me ask a question. What do you think about your obligations to deal with like these issues of social justice? Let me ask, yes, please. Great.
Even more than that, because of the antiquity factor and what you spoke about San Diego, the Biobacco actually, in the past, has gone through very similar climatic changes, which San Diego should be taking.
Our house is kind of high up, so I'm good.
However,
Just, yeah.
we spoke about it
Yeah,
2 years ago,
we did.
and it seems to me that somehow that area was forgotten. Now, a lot of work has been done, similar to what you showed, or told, has been done in the Archaeology. And it seems to me, so we're talking of something, we're speaking of something that at least 5,000 years, and modern problems are very different.
Yeah.
So it seems to me somehow that we've forgotten it. It's very nice to work in the museum, but we're right here.
Yep.
And we haven't made enough of an impact on what's going on in the city of Akko, although we, several people, have actually put in quite a bit of effort.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. Thank you, Michal. How about?
Additional comments, suggestions.
Is it?
It should be done in underwater and coastal archaeology.
Yes, in the back there. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I have two questions actually. The first one is if you have found traces of the Neolithic tsunamis in other parts of the Mediterranean. And the second question is about Methoni. We know that Ammianus Marcellinus tell that the tsunamis from Crete touched also Methoni. Have you found some traces of this tsunami?
Well, I think the best person to answer that is Dorit Sivan, because she actually did a little work in Methoni.
We work on the medieval records. But once you open this course, maybe you'll find something.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Well,
far, it's,
yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
and regarding what we just said about the other places in the Mediterranean, this tsunami that you mentioned, the offshore door, is actually very local because we or those who work on it think that it's the source of this tsunami is from the slope nearby. So it's something local, it's not coming from...
Yeah, it's like a local gigantic landslide from tectonic activity probably in the Rift Valley, the Dead Sea Rift, and then going over the Jezreel Valley and then affecting the north. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Yeah, right? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Additional questions? If not, may we thank Professor Tom very much.
Thank you.